So suppose I want to describe the location of my three friends, Aisha, Beth, and Charlie. And you can see that if there's nothing else happening, it's actually quite hard to describe their locations. So to fix that, what we do is we define a coordinate system, and that just means that we'll lay down a grid. So let's go ahead and lay down a grid. This is me laying down a grid. And now we are in much better place to be able to describe the locations of A, B, and C. But we have to do one more thing, right? We have to specify an origin, a reference point from which we can describe the positions of Aisha, Beth, and Charlie. So it would be convenient if that location is my location, for instance. Now, I can pick any old point that I want. So I can pick this point here, I can pick this point here, I can pick this point here. But in general, it's going to be most helpful if I use my position as the reference, because I'm interested in describing their position and I'm the one who wants to describe it. So I'm going to call my position the origin of the coordinate system. So let's say that I am over here somewhere. Let's say, how about here? And so I am going to call this position the origin, and so I'm going to give it the address 0, 0. And every other point in this grid is going to be given an address that is of the form number 1 and number 2. Okay? And the way this is going to work is that this number is going to tell us the number of steps right or left that I must take to get to that point when starting from the origin, and the second number is going to tell us the number of steps that I must take in order to go up or down to get to that point when starting from the origin. This first number is usually called the x-coordinate, and this is called the y-coordinate. And the reason for that is that we can think of an axis kind of going along here along the x direction. So this would be the x-axis, and that's the right-left axis. And we can think of an axis here going up and down. This would be the y-axis. So the first number is the x-coordinate. It tells us how to move right and left. And the second number is the y-coordinate. It tells us how to move up and down. So let's look, for example, at the position of Aisha relative to me, right? So this is my origin, this is my reference point. So here's Aisha, and to get to Aisha, I need to go 1 and 2 steps to the right, and 1, 2, and 3 steps up. So I go 2 steps to the right and 3 steps up. And so this would be 3 grid cells, or 3 steps if you want. That would be the units, right? So for example, if each grid cell was 1 meter, then this would be 2 meters and 3 meters. So that's Aisha's position. Well, what about Beth's position? Let's look here at Beth for a second. So if I look at Beth, I need to go 1 and 2 to the left. And so the way that I signify to the left is by putting a minus sign. So what I'm going to do for Beth here is minus 2. This minus here is telling me that I'm moving to the left rather than to the right. So I go 1 and 2 to the left and 1 up. So Beth's position is minus 2 and 1. And finally, if I look at Charlie, let's look at Charlie over here. I have to move 1 to the right and then 1 and 2 down. So it's going to be the same kind of idea. I have to move 1 to the right, and to signify that I move down instead of up, I'm going to put a minus sign. So minus 2. And that is going to be Charlie's position. So again, this minus tells me that I'm moving down instead of up. This minus over here tells me that I'm moving left instead of right. So the minus sign is basically telling me that I'm moving in the opposite direction of my standard thing, right? My standard is I move to the right and I move up. When I see a minus, I move in the opposite direction of that standard convention. So there you go. This is how coordinate systems work.